Welcome to the LifesTwists Show with your hosts, Terry Robinson, Lance Conley, and Eric Harrison.
Welcome, everyone. This is Eric Harrison, and we're here again tonight on the LifesTwists Show. Thank you for joining us for another great week, and I'm not even going to waste any time. I'm going to go ahead and bring my partners of crime in. The first guy I want to bring in, he is a closer for real. He's awesome. He's always on point, and I'm glad he's on my team, and that's Lance Conley. How you doing, Lance?
Good. Good evening, Eric. Nice hearing from you again.
All right, cool. And then last but not least, this was my wingman in college. This was the man that, held it down. Whenever I passed him the ball, he put it in the hole and did what he needed to do. And that's my main man, Terry Robinson. What's up, T?
Not too much. How you doing, Eric?
Man, I'm always good, man. Guys, we have a lot to talk about this week, so we just going to jump right into it. And, Terry, I'm going to go ahead and let you get going because earlier you told me how excited you were. And, hey, man, go ahead. Have at it.
Yeah, I'm always excited to have an opportunity to deposit something positive in somebody's life, and especially the subjects and the topics that we're talking about in regards to sports and athlete transition stress. I talk to you guys quite a bit outside of this show, and like I said, it's almost like there's never a day that goes by without me seeing or hearing about some athlete struggling with something. And the more I talk about this stuff, the more it actually helps heal myself. Because, sometimes we just assume, okay, he wrote a book, he's talking about this, he's already made it through the transition, or he's whole. Well, it's a process. And who knows how long it takes. You just have to keep going through it. And so I appreciate you guys, partnering with me to help get this message out to the masses, because I'm sure if I'm still dealing with some of the after effects of something that I did 30 years ago, there's a lot of other people out there dealing with some of the same issues. And I worked in the counseling field for a lot of years, and we were talking before. We talked about depression and how depression can sneak up on you. You can be dealing with depression for years and not even know it. How do I know that? I was one of those people. You know what I mean? And I'm sure I still deal with it in certain aspects. Maybe not a clinical depression, but I'm managing it. I think the way I'm managing it is by talking about it, verbalizing it, getting it out, expressing what I'm feeling. And so the goal is to help athletes and their families. So I know. Yeah. Go ahead, Lance. I'm sorry.
Yeah, Terry. You just brought up that point, and that's exactly because I've been talking to people, for the last 2 months about this book, and one of the things I'm finding is that people have a real difficult time sharing their stories. We've encouraged people to go to the website, share their story, and also, just talk about it. But one of the things that I've found is, there's a lot of different emotions involved in talking about their story, because I don't think they've ever talked about it before, because I think a lot of people kind of isolate, or it isn't really a subject that, people feel comfortable talking about. And so I know in your book, one of the quotes that really stood out to me was, "A problem pondered in isolation seems immense. The same problem shared in those who truly understand is manageable." So basically what you're saying is, when you share your story, the importance of sharing it with other people has a lot of value. And I'm just finding that people don't quite realize that. And I just wonder what you guys' thoughts are on that particular thing.
Well,
I see it.
I'm gonna tell you. It's my fault, Terry, but I'm gonna tell you, man. For me, I think now in my latter years, I open up much more than I did in my earlier years, because when you're young, man, you really, as a young man, no matter who you are, no matter where you're from, you never want to show weakness. And whenever you talk about things of that nature, whether it's depression or anything of that nature, or when you're going through something, sometimes it is seen as weakness. You're admitting that you're weak in an area, and when you do that, that's not taken very well by many people in your life. And I mean, that's carried on into your adulthood. That's carried on into marriages. That's carried on into your workplace. It's carried on into every facet of your life. So, I think it's almost natural, especially for men, not to want to admit their weaknesses, not to even want to talk about that. I mean, Terry, does that make sense?
Makes a lot of sense. From the counseling aspect of it, it's ironic because people that know me, I've been talking about this for over 20 years, but I've never gotten a chance to write it down. I make excuses, well, it's because of this, because of that. But the reality of it is, when you start writing this, you have to do some self-reflecting, and you see some things that you probably don't want to see or don't want to feel. And so a lot of people think, I just sit down and write a story. Well, if you write a story and you're truthful writing that story, you're going to have to put some things on paper maybe that you're not comfortable with or that you didn't even think about. And now all of a sudden it's coming to the surface, and it's like, wow, how do I even interpret this, what I'm going through or what I went through or what I'm feeling, you know what I mean, without breaking down. And so it's really a therapeutic process that we're talking about and that we're going through, talking about this subject. And so I think it's more difficult than the average person that can even realize.
Exactly. You on point, man. That's powerful.
Yeah, Terry, because I was talking to a friend at work, actually a lady friend. She's a mother of 4, and married, and a great person, bubbly, outgoing, and she played sports and actually went to college to play sports. And what made me think about this was, in our conversation, when I asked her to share her story, she didn't want to. She said she's not prepared to because she deals with too much shame that she's afraid to even go back to her hometown because of the feelings associated with that. And that's how powerful and strong those emotions can be.
Yeah, man.
And, it just kind of brings me back to, if you're watching in Sports Center this week, Greg Oden came on Sports Center and, spoke about, viewing himself as the biggest bust in the NBA. How does a 24, 25-year-old male that's only lived a small portion of his life already have such a negative view of himself in relations to life outside of sports? And, what's your guys' thoughts on that as far as, knowing about the Greg Oden story?
Eric, you want to jump in, or you?
Well, you know what, man, let's kind of tackle it together, because we've kind of talked about this already, and we came up with so many different points. Terry, you had some great ones, and so did you, Lance. But one of the things that, like I said, it's unrealistic expectations. I think that just about every athlete that begins to play a sport, when they start playing, many times they start playing because they saw somebody on TV playing that sport. And then they started emulating that person, whether it was in their house, like me, for instance. I'll just go ahead and just be honest about what I did. Man, I bent that hanger. I made that hanger into that hoop. I put that hoop into my door. I closed the door, and then I balled up some aluminum foil, and there it was. And that's where my dream started, at a very, very young age. And then when I had the opportunity to actually be on a court, oh, my God. So, and so as I grew up, all those things continued to build up inside of me. And then, in America, they tell you could be whatever you want to be, right? You could do whatever you want to do. I mean, look at Donald Trump. Look at Donald Trump, President of the United States now. So you know what I'm saying? I mean, it's like, so when you're growing up, you have those things in you, and then you have those expectations. Now, as you grow up and you got people cheering you on at the game and don't let you be halfway good, if you're good, then, oh, my God, now they're saying, man, you know what, you could be, and you could be this. And, you start hearing these things, and all these expectations get built up. And, as you continue to play the sport and as you continue to be blessed enough to advance, when you finally do stop, man, if you're not, like, for instance, for me, if I didn't if I didn't win a state championship in high school, if I didn't win the NCAA championship and was All-American, and if I wasn't All-NBA for 10 years and won, 3 championships like I saw Michael Jordan and all these other dudes do, then something was wrong. I ain't do it right. I'm not that good. So, I didn't think at times that, you don't think you're successful. And I think Greg Oden has kind of taken that to the 10th power, if you know what I mean. I mean, Terry, go ahead and share if you want, but that's kind of my take on it.
Well, it's ironic that you said you had the coat hanger and the aluminum foil. I had the coat hanger too, but I had socks. I bought a sock to do the same thing.
Yeah,
so I did the same thing. Closed the door, same thing. When I think about Greg Oden, I feel sad for him because I remember the feeling, and I was just a college basketball player. You know what I mean? So here's somebody that was all everything. First round draft pick, 7'2". In that body, what else are you supposed to be? I mean, here's a modern day giant walking around, and now he can't participate in a sport that gave him everything. I mean, so it's not about the money. It's so many things that are probably going through this young man's mind right now or his head right now. And we talk about, the mental stuff and emotional stuff and what can we do to help him? I pray to God that he somehow hears this show that we're talking about and he join us and he get on a circuit and go around the world and start speaking about it because he would have a bigger impact there than he would on the basketball court. Because guess what? When I sat down and really started thinking about writing this book, it wasn't necessarily about the professional athlete. It wasn't even really about the college athlete. It was about the high school athlete because there are millions of high school athletes out here that are struggling.
Yes, sir.
That are struggling because they didn't make it to college, or if they did get to college, the dream was cut short much faster than anticipated. And we all know the percentages of people that make it to the professional level. It's slim to none. I mean, you probably have better odds winning the lottery in certain aspects than getting on a professional team. I mean, those what the odds are. Here you have somebody that made it all the way there. 5 years of injury. Can you imagine the depression this young man was experiencing through those 5 years? And now he's on the other side of it, and it's hitting him like a ton of bricks. And he's 7'2". He can't hide. I mean, I'm 6'8", and people constantly saying, "Man, did you play ball? How tall are you?" And it doesn't bother me. And I know a lot of people don't want to ask you because they think that you'll be offended, and some people are, but I'm not. Mm-hmm. So can you imagine him? Where can he go? Where can he go and just escape? He can't. He has to eventually deal with it constantly, every day. And what does he do? He go back to his university's alma mater, where he got to experience it all the time. So he's almost shooting himself in the foot doing that. But I understand he got to take care of his life bills or whatever. He got to do something. But man, that man, he can benefit a lot of people's lives just by telling his story. And you think people wouldn't want to sit down and listen to what he has to say, what his life was about? Because I can imagine being that big anyway, growing up as a kid. We talked about this on the last show. I'm sure he felt awkward in a lot of situations being that big because you're like a giant, literally. I don't know too many people that I haven't ran into too many people that is that size. And I played basketball. So can you imagine what life is like for him after sports? Can he get if he's not a professional athlete making millions of dollars, what if he want to fly across the country? He's not going to be able to afford to get in first class. Guess where he got to go? To the back of the plane.
And I hate the back of the plane. Oh, my God. You just made my knees start hurting right now. Woo! My knees
you realize what that feels like?
Woo! That's crazy, guys. Listen, this is what we're going to do right now. This is a great conversation, guys. And Lance, we're going to go ahead. We're going to pay some bills. And then, Lance, I'm going to let you chime in on this, man, because I know you got some things to talk about as well. So everybody will be right back right after these messages.
Sports is a common denominator in the lives of people everywhere. Our celebration of sports creates an environment that gives athletes an amazing experience that enhances their lives. Athletes work long and hard to be the best at that thing that gives them so much elation. But what happens after the athlete is done? When a circumstance comes up and they're no longer able to play that sport? Whether it's the high school athlete who doesn't get that scholarship to go to the next level, or the college athlete that doesn't get picked in the draft, or even the professional athlete who now has to retire and find something else to do day to day. Many athletes struggle with this transition from competition to regular everyday life. This transition causes trauma, and that trauma often leads to depression, anxiety, anger, and even health issues. Author Terry Robinson noticed this problem and researched it and came up with the book Athlete Transition Stress. This book deals with the subconscious programming and conditioning that goes on in an athlete's mind while participating in a sport. So if you or anyone you know are dealing with these issues related to transitioning from a sport, pick up the book Athlete Transition Stress and share your story in our global community online at www.letgroup1.com. Athlete Transition Stress is available on Amazon.com and on the LET Group website at www.letgroup1.com.
Hello, everyone. We're back. Again, Athlete Transition Stress. Terry Robinson wrote the book, and as you've been hearing in this show and even the previous show, he's not only talking about the things that he knows that other people have went through, but he's also sharing some personal experiences as well. And just another note about the book, we've written a book in such a way that you can actually make notes on every page. So there's space on every page where you can make notes and highlight and begin to study and begin to try to relate yourself to some of the things that you read in the book and try to find some of the solutions to some of the things that you're going through as you went through your transition from playing the sport that you played. Now, we just had a great conversation about Greg Oden. It was awesome. And, Lance, I know you chomping at the bit, man, so I'm going to hand it to you, man, and let you do your thing.
Hey, thanks, Eric. Hey, I just wanted to pick up a couple points of what you guys were talking about earlier in relation to Greg Oden. But in general, that emotional part of sports and how it affects people, because as Terry was saying earlier, there's thousands of individuals, boys, girls, that graduate from high school that are impacted by athlete transition stress. Again, we talked about in the previous show that people identify as who they are, and they have a hard time, or a difficult time really sharing story or even talking about it. I know Terry in his book, again, I revert back to the book because I think there's so much good information in that book. And each chapter, I just felt like I learned something else, and there's so many good points in it. But, one of the things Terry says is that fear and pain are friends in most situations. A lot of times we're trained when we deal with fears to run. And I think when you're 17, 18 years old, and I think one of the things that your peers and people that are close to your family members, you play sports, one of the things I'll ask you is, why are you going to college? Are you going to play sports? A lot of times you don't hear, are you going to college to get your education? Why are you going to college as far as, are you going to play basketball? Are you going to play baseball? So there's such a strong association with college and sports. And when you think about the emotional part for a 17 or 18-year-old, we talk about shame, we talk about guilt, we just talk about other strong emotions. Kids have that fear. They like to run away from that because they don't know how to identify. They don't know how to quite engage or speak about those topics yet because they're uncomfortable. And, I just wanted to kind of touch base on that and what it feels for a person like Greg Oden. Is he comfortable with this situation. Again, why would someone that is his age already view himself the way he views himself when he has so much more to offer this world? I think a lot of times when we're talking about, kids graduating high school or kids graduating college, that they do have a lot to offer, and do they sometimes not realize it, what they have to offer, because they're so engaged in sports and feeling like maybe they failed or they let someone else down. And I was just kind of wondering, does Greg feel like he let his fans down or his family down, or maybe even let himself down? So this is just some thoughts I had, and I know that's quite a bit to digest, but again, I think, Terry, you kind of hit it on your book. We have two options when we deal with fear and pain, and we either run from it or we need to deal with it. And how would you advise someone to deal with that? How did you bring it up when you were at Drake, feeling some of these emotions? Did someone come to you, or did you have to go out of your way to address it?
Well, like you said, the key, all those things you said were right on the money, I believe. What he's probably going through, what he's thinking as far as letting himself down, letting his family down, all those things. He's feeling all those things, I'm sure. Because, somebody in his situation, it's almost like he's a family hero, too. You know what I mean? When you're the family hero, when we talk about counseling, we talk about these different roles that people play in families. And somebody that achieves what he's achieved, I would put money on it that he was a family hero. So he always had these expectations. He always had to live up to these expectations. He never really understood what it felt like to fall short of anything. You know what I mean? Because this is Greg Oden. I can only imagine what his past was like. You know what I mean? What was this kid like what was he like as a kid, a preteen? These are things that we don't know. You know what I mean? Because that'll tell the story in totality. All we know is what we saw at Ohio State and the little bit that we got a chance to see in the NBA. But there's a whole person here that we're talking about. You know what I mean? And it would be interesting just to see what it was like for him growing up. What was it like coming up, in his shoes? Because I know I'm not trying to speak anything negative or ill about him, because I do recall reading some stuff about some drinking or some domestic stuff. Not a lot, but I do recall hearing that stuff. But that all comes with that frustration. That all comes with the depression, the different things that he's dealing with that he doesn't know how to deal with. How do we know how mature is he in terms of emotionally? When you're that good, you're put on a pedestal. As long as you continue to put the ball in the basket, you're good. We will make sure we take care of you. But when you can no longer do that, like we talked about all the time, all the resources happen to be on the front end. Because if the resources were truly on the back end, he probably wouldn't be making that statement that he made. He probably wouldn't be making that, because he would have an understanding.
Exactly.
He would have an understanding of, okay, this is where I am. This is what I'm going through. And I know I have to go through this in order to get to the other side of this. And that's what we're doing.
Right.
And a big part of what we want to do is prevention, because we want to get this out to the current athletes, too, and their parents, so they can be preparing themselves and their kids. So when they do hit that wall, it's not like a shock, or it's not like a true death, because it is a death. It's not a physical death, but it is a death, because he's dying to who he used to be. So this is what he's feeling. I'm dying. I'm literally dying. And I don't know if you guys have ever been in that situation before, but I know you have, because I know you guys. I've been in that situation from a business that I had. Lance and I were business partners. And I couldn't verbalize that at the time we were going through it, but I'm literally dying, because I have to start completely over. So when you're going through a death, it's going to be difficult. It's traumatic. And so what he's saying is good, because he can get some help. If he didn't say nothing, then we could, he's okay. Still with Ohio State coaching, doing what he loves to do, he's fine. But he made a huge statement. He said, man, I feel like I was the biggest bust. And he said it to the whole world. And we're saying, well, what is he talking about? Well, he's telling us something. This man is depressed.
Hey, Terry.
Yeah.
I just want to take one step back, because you just said it. So in your view, by him going back to Ohio State, do you feel like he's running away from his problem because that's what he's comfortable with, or do you think that's a part of the solution? And
well, I don't think
probably only he knows that.
Right. And it is a great question. On a subconscious level, he is running. On a conscious level, he's just going back to it's a habit. When things get tough, what do we usually do? We go back to what we know how to do. It's a habit. It's not that it's the best thing for him, but it's a habit. So I don't think on a conscious level he's running, but on a subconscious level he is, because he's running back to what always worked for him, the basketball court. But there, he's going to have to experience the same emotions because he's on a basketball court, and in his mind he can still be playing and dominating, but his body won't allow him to do it. So he has to deal with that over and over again every day. If Ohio State has a loss, they may not be talking about Ohio State if he's doing the interview. They're going to be talking about what happened to you, Greg. What happened?
Yeah.
How do you feel? I mean, can you imagine going through that day in and day out? So I don't think so.
And guys, remember, if you want to talk about the level of what he considers fair, you remember, guys, they didn't win the championship that year. I don't believe they won. They didn't. So they made it to the national championship, but you see what I'm saying? So disappointment actually may have even started there.
Yeah.
And then, now he's looking at this promising NBA career, and now that on top of the other failure that he, experienced, you see what I mean? It's and Terry, you've talked about this in the book, and we've talked about it, how undealt with trauma only stacks up. It piles up on the inside of you, and, it winds up just bringing this whole thing to a head, and it winds up, resulting in something that could be really tragic. You know what I mean? So, that's powerful stuff, guys. That really is. So right now, what we're going to do is we're going to take another break. This is a good time to do it. And, man, we're going to continue this spirited conversation. The other thing that I want to encourage you guys to do, for all you guys that are listening, I would love for you guys to call in and chime in with us. We don't want to always make it as though we're talking to you or talking at you, but we want to make this a discussion, because this is something that we feel is affecting our society as a whole. So we need to hear from you. We need to hear what you have to say about it. So the number that you can call in to get in on the show and to have something to say to us and to just, join the conversation, the number is area code 323-642-1579. Again, the number is 323-642-1579. Call in. Let us hear from you. We'd love to hear what you have to say about this subject. And now we're going to go ahead and play another commercial, get another commercial out of the way, and we'll be right back.
The LET Group was established in 2016. Lance Conley, Eric Harrison, and Terry Robinson came together in agreement to build a model of integrity, hard work, and excellence. All three share a passion for health and creativity, using outside-of-the-box thinking. They all have backgrounds in sports and entrepreneurship. Lance and Terry have over 50 years of combined experience in the mental health field, and Eric has over 25 years of experience in marketing and business. They came together to build a service that would literally change lives. The LET Group offers seminars, books, and other tools to encourage, educate, and enhance the quality of life for those in need. For more information on the tools and resources that the LET Group offers, visit www.letgroup1.com.
Hey, everybody, we're back. Yes, the LET Group. That is what our organization is called. Again, Terry had the vision, and he shared it with Lance and I, and we really, felt that this is something that's affecting so many people. First of all, we identified with it with ourselves, and then secondly, we wanted to share it with the world. Just so you guys know, many of the things that we talk about, we're dealing with ourselves still today. We are not over it by any stretch of the imagination. We may be a little bit better because we understand what's going on with us, but by no stretch of the imagination are we, totally healed or over this thing. And as the LET group, we realize that, and we are working and continuing to put together different curriculums. We're putting together different presentations. We're going all over the country to present this thing to people everywhere so that we can go ahead and attack this problem together. So, LET Group, go to our website, www.letgroup1.com. Again, www.letgroup1.com. So we're going to go ahead and continue this discussion. Lance, I'm going to go ahead and hand it off to you. I'm really enjoying myself tonight, and actually I'm kind of being set free myself. So, Lance, go ahead and take it, man. I think you got a few other things that you want to share.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Eric. I just want to continue to kind of build off of our conversation and, talking about especially young people, people that are impressionable and, are just beginning the process of learning to communicate and share things. I know, again, I encourage people, like you said before the break, to call in and share their stories because I think there is a lot of value to that. But as we're speaking about this subject, it kind of brought to me, about my niece. I have a 19-year-old niece that, was very athletic in high school. And again, I think one of the things that, people talked in the main conversation people had with her was sometimes centered around sports. She played softball, basketball, and golf. And, she was good in all sports. She went on to junior college and played some golf, and she actually made it to the national to play, in the tournament in Florida. And, I had a chance, I think I seen her probably about a month ago. We were actually up in Madison watching my other nephew play basketball. And I was just curious because I wanted to get her thoughts on it. I kind of asked her because she actually transferred to University of Northern Iowa for her education, which is great. But I was just going to, how she's dealing with, not playing sports now that she's transferred to UNI. And she gave me that look, and she goes, I don't know. So it just tells me that, again, we do not provide a platform for people to be able to speak about it. And at some point, as a society, as a, even the school system, coaches, we really have to prepare these young people, whether they're seniors in high school or seniors in college, to be able to communicate in order to move forward. Because a lot of times I think we move forward, like we were talking about earlier, was able to identify why we feel in the way we're feeling. Why would someone come up to me and tell me that, they don't want to go back to their hometown because they feel shame because of what happened in their sports? I mean, no one should have to live their life like that or want to live their life like that. And, again, there's such a strong association in this society, in the world we live in, with sports. If you, watch the Hawkeyes on Saturday night when he made that game-winning field goal, you've seen thousands of people rush the field. And it wasn't just college students. There was, 50, 60-year-old men rushing the field. So it just says how big of an impact, how much we value sports. And I guess my thoughts are, when are we going to start valuing some of the disappointments and, in their view, the failures that they view it against how they view it, and why do they associate it as a failure? And again, I'll let you guys talk a little bit more about that. But I just, when you're talking about that, Terry and Eric, it made me think of my niece and the inability to be able to verbalize and share what her experience is right now without sports playing a huge part, which in the last 8 years it has. So go ahead.
I don't. You know what? When you talk about it like that, just the question, it's so overwhelming to verbalize it. I mean, this is their whole life. This is their whole world. That question itself, if you present that to somebody, especially somebody that young, it is overwhelming. I don't even know how to put it into words. That's kind of what I was speaking to earlier when I was saying it took me this long to even just write this book. Not even that long of a book. I tried to put a lot of quality information in there, but the whole experience is so overwhelming that it's hard to just sit down and just say, okay, I'm just going to let it flow. You almost need somebody working with you to help you do that. To us, Lance and I, we worked in the counseling field, so, yeah, we've had enough experience in doing that, so we learned it. But I can guarantee you, when I first got out of school, I was clueless to doing that. It took me a while to do that. And Eric, we always talking, so of course we get comfortable sharing and talking about this stuff. Think about somebody just 18, 19, 20, 22 years old. That's an overwhelming experience. It's overwhelming. It's a death. You're grieving. You're grieving. And a lot of times we don't even know it. We don't know it. How could you not be grieving if you did this your whole life, and now after your freshman or sophomore year, you no longer participate in sports? You think that's not going to have an impact? You think it's not? It has to.
Exactly. It has to do that. Yeah. Go ahead, Lance. Go ahead.
Yeah, and my question to you, Terry, then, and even Eric, go ahead and jump in, is, when you're talking to somebody, how do you address it? If you're a family member, a brother, sister, a friend, someone that can see that, someone might be having a difficult time with the transition, outside of athletics, what's the approach? How do you address that? Or do you address it, or do you just let them go through the grieving process?
Well, of course, the first thing I'm going to say is that, depending on who the individual is, sometimes you can say, hey, I got something I want you to read, or I got something I want you to listen to, and maybe to jar something, because you definitely don't want to force them. It's almost like if somebody's dealing with a death. I mean, if somebody came to you and said, why don't you just get over it? What kind of feelings would come as a result of that? You know what I mean? Why don't you just get over it and move on after you just experienced somebody dying that you love and that's close to you? Can you imagine that?
Exactly.
It's one of those things you cannot force. But that's why we're trying to be creative and coming up with different ways to try to reach individuals, because we know they're out here and we know that they're going through some difficulties. And some people worse than others. You know what I mean? Because you have to almost, and being a parent, you have to watch out for your kids. If they start to drink, smoking, hanging out, doing whatever, doing things that they didn't normally do, you have to address it. And it's not just because I'm just rebelling, but we have to look at this loss that I'm dealing with. And maybe I don't even realize how big of a loss it was. And definitely at that time you don't. And that's why we're talking about this almost in a preventative type of way. Prevention is the key, because if I know I'm going to go through this, it's still going to be difficult for me, but at least I know that this was an expectation. I knew I had to eventually get to this point, whether I went from high school to college or professional. I knew at some point in time it was going to end, and I knew I was going to experience these emotions, these feelings, these thoughts, because then I could put two and two together. But if I'm going through this without a map, it's difficult. It's very difficult. I mean, because you're questioning everything. You're questioning yourself, your coaches, your family members. You're blaming people. I mean, they have nothing to do with it, really, in most cases.
Exactly. And guess what? It carries over into every area of your life. So it carries over even into, like, for instance, if you're in business, or if you're in corporate America, or if you have a job, or it even carries over into your relationships. Those same feelings wind up carrying over, and if they're undealt with and unchecked, then what happens is that now you're in a trauma, and then everybody else around you is in a trauma too. So now it's a traumatic situation for everybody involved. So it could wind up really being something that could really, hurt everybody who's in your circle. So, again, great conversation, guys. This is amazing. And I know that it's helping whoever's listening right now. So what we're going to do is we're going to pay some more bills, and we're going to come right back with more conversation. And, again, we would love to have you call in, and I'm going to give you that number again. The number is 323, that's the area code, 642-1579. Again, area code 323-642-1579. Call in. Join in on this great conversation, and we would just love to have you. So, look, we're going to pay a few bills, and we'll be right back.
Sports is a common denominator in the lives of people everywhere. Our celebration of sports creates an environment that gives athletes an amazing experience that enhances their lives. Athletes work long and hard to be the best at that thing that gives them so much elation. But what happens after the athlete is done? When a circumstance comes up and they're no longer able to play that sport? Whether it's the high school athlete who doesn't get that scholarship to go to the next level, or the college athlete that doesn't get picked in the draft, or even the professional athlete who now has to retire and find something else to do day to day. Many athletes struggle with this transition from competition to regular everyday life. This transition causes trauma, and that trauma often leads to depression, anxiety, anger, and even health issues. Author Terry Robinson noticed this problem and researched it and came up with the book, Athlete Transition Stress. This book deals with the subconscious programming and conditioning that goes on in an athlete's mind while participating in a sport. So if you or anyone you know are dealing with these issues related to transitioning from a sport, pick up the book, Athlete Transition Stress, and share your story in our global community online at www.letgroup1.com. Athlete Transition Stress is available on Amazon.com and on the LET Group website at www.letgroup1.com.
Hello, everyone. We're back. Again, athlete transition stress. We've been talking about it the whole show and how it relates to everything that's going on. And Lance, I'm going to let you go ahead and just jump right in, because I think you had a few points and a few excerpts from the book and a few things that, you know, are really related to exactly what we're talking about right now.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks, Eric. You know, one of the things, you know, as we talk about the book, again, I encourage people to, you know, if you get a chance, go to the LET Group website, purchase the book, because there's a lot of value. And it seems like every chapter, you know, even every paragraph, it feels like you can pull something out and really relates to, you know, my experience, you know, whether it's sports or business or, you know, making a lot of different transitions, because we all go through it. And I think one of the biggest portions of that is, you know, character. And I think when Terry's, I think it was chapter 3, he talks about character and, you know, developing character, and you feel like it's a critical element while participating in sports. And a lot of times you say it's essential for long-term success. And again, the key word being long-term. And I think when you talk about character and long-term, I think a lot of times when you see sports, you know, whether it's basketball, football, or any sport, you know, these young people are being recruited, you know, everybody telling them how great they are, you know, have great relationships. Everybody looks up to them when they go to school. Everybody's patting them on the back. And that's short term. And that's one of my concerns with, you know, society and sports. You know, everything is more short term, and it isn't really necessarily developing character. It's more about developing egos. And I think I'd definitely like you to talk a little bit about that, and Terry, and why that was, you felt like important enough to discuss in the book, and why you thought character development is critical, and why it's critical for the long term.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's a good question, Lance, because, you know, I played a lot of basketball and played with a lot of guys. And just because we talk about flaws in character don't mean that we're bad people. You know, and I didn't learn that until I was well into my adult years, because, you know, we love to judge people based on what we see, but we don't know nothing about them unless we walked in their shoes. And as old as I got, I started realizing some of the things that I was seeing in some of my past teammates, which were the character flaws that they had, and I'm sure I had mine too, that, man, these kids must have been traumatized. and they were traumatized. And that's why most of us developed in the first place, because we were escaping from that trauma. And that's how most athletes develop, especially the good ones. And and most of them are good. So character development is critical. And a lot of times we have coaches that are in the same boat as these athletes. And so, in order to develop a good character, you have to have a blueprint. Somebody where do you get it from? Where do you get it from? And it doesn't mean that you can't get it if you don't have both parents at home or dad in your life. You have to get it from somebody. And a lot of times we get in touch with these other people that are these huge character flaws, parents or coaches themselves, and we just continue moving on with the same behavior or development. And so when we do get to a point in time where things get rough for us, what do you think is going to happen? It's, our character is going to show. You can't hide that. What's in you, who you are, is going to eventually show, whether you want it to or not. And so that's why it's critical to understand these dynamics when it comes to character development. What does it mean? I don't want to make it seem like one team or one coach is better than the other. But the way I see it is when you look at the programs such as the Dukes, the North Carolina, these different programs, you can kind of see a difference in these players than you do in certain other schools. Why is that? You know what I mean? Why do they recruit certain people and they don't recruit other individuals? Not that one is better than the others, but they see something too. And then you have some of these coaches that can deal with these people with these serious character flaws and turn them around. And so it's a sticky thing, and it's a tricky thing, because if you do have these huge character flaws and you go to a program that can't really help mentor you or get you into a good place, you can't help but to run into a bad space eventually, especially when it's over, because you haven't really developed in that area. Because I think it's all about development too. When you have these character flaws, I think most of us do. But if we're in a program or we're under some kind of leadership that can help us develop as men or women, we're going to be better off in the long run. I think our character flaws is what really gets us to where we are.
Yeah, Terry, one thing I want to share too is, and this is something that really, and this is a personal thing for me. See, character many times is built off of your family structure. Your family structure builds a lot of that, right, guys? I mean, think about it, right? If your father's around, or if someone is in your life and they're telling you about these things, they're steering you towards character. Am I correct in assuming that, guys?
Yeah, I think so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So for me personally, I didn't have that person in my life to let me know what the character decision was. Now, I had an idea of what right and wrong was, you understand, but character and how to act in certain situations, I didn't know what that was. I mean, I even had a person that say to me one time, wow, why did you do that? How did your mother and father raise you? Somebody told me that. You were raised to do that? And that question it made me think, guys, and I said, well, I wasn't really raised by anyone, so I guess I don't know. I guess I don't know what real character is. So, Terry, the point you brought up about the coaching and having coaches that could speak into your life and teach you these things, it helps. Now, if you get into a situation where people aren't teaching you that and it's all about your athletic ability, then, it kind of takes you down a bad road and it kind of sets you up for failure later on down the line.
No question about it, and that happens over and over again. And I'm not necessarily blaming anybody in particular, but you have coaches that are trying to get to the next level too, and they sometimes don't feel like they have the time to invest in this particular kid, and they feel like the kid they're not gonna listen to me anyway. So if they got talent, we're gonna play you. And when it's over, it's over. You're going in one direction, I'm going in another direction. It's an unfortunate situation.
But like you said, Terry, I think character is developed, and I think when you develop character, you base it off your experiences that you have, and then the people around us guide us through that. A lot of times when we talk about our youth, I mean, you can go to a local game of 9, 10-year-old kids running up and down the court, then you have parents, jumping up and down and, yelling at their kid, or you have a coach that's, is getting on kids. And, it seems like a lot of times coaches and sometimes parents or even friends have opportunities to develop character. But I think what gets lost in it is wanting to win or wanting their child to be the best, and a lot of times we overlook that. And I think you make a good reference point when you talk about Coach K, because you see a lot of his kids that go through school, they graduate, or if they don't graduate, they try to come back and graduate. And, it looks like most of them have a life beyond basketball. You look at Grant Hill, you look at Jason Williams, they're doing something associated with basketball, but, they look like they're, enjoying life, you know what I mean? They have, how do you develop life outside of the sport? How do you create something that you're passionate about when something like a sport is the only thing that you have been passionate about? I mean, heck, we've talked about how much time, a college athlete has to put into their sport. They really don't have time outside of that really to do much else. But, development of character, I think the key word is development, because we all have opportunities with young people to, pull them aside, teach them the right thing, or, tell them that, hey, man, you lost this one, but, you gained something by doing this, and this. And I think we see it as a society, again, and I'm not putting sports down by any means, because I think it provides so many good characteristics for young people. But at the same time, we've developed some bad habits by listening and watching other people around sports. And so sorry about running on so much, guys, but I'll let you also speak to that, okay?
Yeah. Good discussion, because there's so many different directions we can go with what we're talking about. Because, like I said, I'm not saying that Coach K is the perfect individual either, because I've heard certain things, you know what I mean? But, I think
exactly. That's why when you mentioned him, exactly. You were talking, Terry, but exactly. And again, Lance, you brought up a good point. Character is also developed by your experiences. So, you have to kind of, character, you got to develop it yourself. Because if you depend on somebody else, another man could let you down too. Right, Terry? I mean, no one's perfect. So if you base it on another person, right, Pete? It's, it could take you down the wrong road. So we have to know that. So, Terry, now that we're in the last minutes of the show, this is what I want you to do. I want you to sum up why LET. Why LET? Why did you have the vision, the dream, and the drive to put together this organization, and really, in your mind and in your own words, what it's all about?
Well, for those that don't know, LET, it's our initials, the three of us. And I figure, when something really means something to you, you put your best foot forward. And so every time we hear LET, it stands for something. Those are not just letters. This is who we are. And so we want to make sure that we put some things together that are really going to be impactful for people around the world, not just for us, but just people around the world, people in general, because we know that there's a lot of people out here that can utilize what we're doing and what we're working on. And so when I thought about it, it was crystal clear. You could come up with something that sounds, fancy or whatever, but if it doesn't have any meaning behind it, I mean, can you really put your best foot forward? Put your best effort into it? I don't know, possibly, but I think we take what we're doing extremely serious, and so there's nothing more serious than who we are, the name that we've been given. And so that's where I came up with that, LET, and we take that serious because that's who we are, not just in business, but that's who we are as individuals as well. And I feel like, in playing sports, it's always been about the team, you know what I mean? And I feel like we have a great team, and this is our team. This is our brand. This is who we are. So hopefully that answers your question.
Oh, most definitely, most definitely. Now, Lance, what is LET to you?
LET is an opportunity. I've been counseling for the last 20 years of my life. I, graduated from UNI with a social work degree. And it's always been important to me to have some type of impact in other people's lives, especially young people. Because, again, I think young people, you have the opportunity to develop or to role model or to even share experiences to help them through some tough times. And I think the LET group to me is the opportunity to reach, seniors in high school that are graduating and letting them know that, hey, this is a normal process. What you're feeling, what you're going through is what everybody else is going through, so it is okay to talk about it. Or, that college senior that's going on to, get a job in the real world, but yet hasn't yet dealt with the idea of letting go of the past or, maybe dealing with an injury or maybe a bad experience with a coach where they felt like, that college experience wasn't set out what they thought to do. Be able to reach people and just sharing that, hey, again, some of this is normal and there's some value to be able to identify, why you're feeling the way you're feeling. Because shame and guilt are powerful emotions. And I think sometimes they stop us from moving forward and they affect so many different parts of our lives, whether it's a job or whether it's the relationship or whether how we treat somebody else. I know, Terry talked a little bit about, our business experience and some of the things that we had to go through. I mean, heck, when we were going through that process, I didn't want to be around anybody. I thank God me and Terry were able to speak to each other and share some of the things that we were going through. But once you left that workplace, it's like, man, I wanted to go home, didn't want to talk to the neighbors, didn't want to talk to, anybody. I just wanted to, it just made you anger. When you're dealing with that anger, it's a powerful thing, and it's important for people to be able to share it with people. So I guess that's what LET means to me, Eric.
Awesome. Okay, people, there's a method to my madness. We have a place on our website, which is www.letgroup1.com, where we set up a form where you can share your story, share your transition story, share your athlete transition story, or any transition story that you may have experienced in your life. The reason why I had these two gentlemen share what LET means to them is because this is something that they take very seriously. When we sat down to put this together, it was established right away that this was about helping other people. We are not just in it to try to write a best-selling book and to try to propel ourselves onto the national stage. But what we want to do is we want to put ourselves in a place where we can truly help people to be the best that they can be. And the only way that you can be the best that you can be is to not have the anchor around your neck of guilt, shame, and all the other things that come from the trauma associated to the transition from playing a sport or the transition of doing something else. So, again, check us out at www.letgroup.com, letgroup1.com, and go and share your story. Click the link. It'll say submit your story, and go out there and submit your story. We would love to hear your story, and we could even feature it on the show next week. So, guys, we're going to go ahead and sign off. Terry and Lance, great talking to you again. It's always great, and I can't wait till next week. What about you guys?
Same.
Can't wait.
All right.
Thanks, Eric.
So we'll see you guys next week. We're signing off. I'll talk to you soon.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, later.
Thank you for joining us on the LifesTwists show. When you have a chance, please check out our website at www.letgroup1.com and see all of the things that we'll be doing over the next several weeks. In the meantime, have a great week, and we'll see you soon.